Perfect song for today's message, and you'll see when we get there in just a minute. Fifth and sixth grade, as they're walking out the door, I just want to let the parents know, we started doing something with fifth and sixth grade, which they have the class every Sunday morning, but we started adding a Sunday night for fifth and sixth grade, so it's the first Sunday night of every month. And it's usually here at the building, and I put that on Facebook this morning that it was here at the building at 5:30, but then I found out quickly that no, they're having a pool party because this is the last Sunday before school starts back. So they're doing a pool party this afternoon from 3 to 5 at the home of Adam and Shelley Lloyd. And so their address is on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, come see me after and I'll show you the address, or Jamie can give the information. I'm sure he's got a little handout he's giving the kids today, but just encourage your 5th and 6th graders to get involved with that ministry because it's really, really a powerful ministry. So today we're wrapping up at the movies, and I'm doing something I don't normally do. I don't normally put a movie in the series that is not available like online yet. This one is only available in the theaters, so I'm sure some of you did not get an opportunity to see it because it's only in the theaters. Some of you did. I've had people come up to me about this movie like, I cried during that movie or whatever. It's a very, very powerful film for a lot of folks because it hits on something that all of us can relate to. So I'm going to show you the trailer and you'll see a little bit what it's about.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's mind. Make some noise! Sadness is in the house! It's anger!
Let me at him! We gotta get our mouth guard, people!
Fear! No, that's not ours! Disgust. Glad to have her on our team. Our little girl's growing up so fast.
Ow. Sorry.
It should be nothing but smooth sailing.
Hello. I'm anxiety. Where can I put my stuff?
A new emotion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted to make such a good first impression.
What do you mean, we? I'm Envy. Look at your hair. Oh, yeah, not happening.
That's on we.
On what?
It's what you would call the boredom.
What's your name, big fella?
That's embarrassment.
Welcome to headquarters, embarrassment. Oh, we're doing a fit. No. Oh, nope, going high. Oh, you got a real sweaty palm there, buddy.
Look, we all have a job to do. I plan for the future.
You want to sit with us? These girls are so cool.
We can't let her know we're excited.
I got this.
Joy, I'm just curious. Maybe, I could
Thank you,
help.
not now.
Yeah.
That's not gonna haunt us for the rest of our lives at all.
You feeling all right?
I know change is scary,
Let's do this. Hey, Riley.
but we need new friends or we'll be totally alone in high school. Out with the old, in with the new. Riley's life requires more sophisticated emotions than all of you.
You can't just bottle us up.
We are suppressed emotions!
Let Operation New Riley begin.
You aren't packed yet?
I'm the worst!
Well, that's a preview of the next 10 years.
Come on. Riley needs us. Have I ever steered you wrong before?
Many times.
What is that? It's the sarcasm!
Sarcasm. Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys. Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
All right, so Pixar does it again. I mean, you can tell from the title, this is the sequel. So Inside Out 2. And in the first one, if you remember, Riley was a little girl, and it dealt with her 5 core emotions, like joy, disgust, sadness, anger, and fear. And they're all vying for control of her control panel. And it's about core memories and how core memories make up who we are, and the little orbs are the core memories. That was all in the first one. In this one, things get a lot more complicated because Riley enters puberty, and a remodel team comes in and tears up the control panel and introduces a whole bunch of new emotions. You get anxiety, you get boredom, disgust, embarrassment, and a brief cameo by nostalgia. And so all of these new emotions enter into Riley's control panel. And this movie is a little bit more complicated than the first one, where it's about core beliefs. Like, what do I believe about myself? Am I a good person? Or am I good enough? And the core beliefs are made up not only by what Riley's parents told her when she was a child, but they're made up by her experiences, because as she enters adolescence, she begins to have experiences that begin to change how she feels about herself and who she thinks she is. And I think they nailed it. I think Pixar did a great job with this movie, and my favorite scene in the movie is the one I'm going to show you right now. But I like, for anybody who has been through adolescence, which I'm looking at a room full of people who have, for anyone who has ever raised someone who's gone through puberty or is currently in the process of raising someone going through this, this is exactly how it plays out every morning.
Permits? For what?
For expanding the place. You know, for the others.
What others?
They're not here yet? Hey, Monty, you got that console?
Yeah. Give me a sec. Hey, what are you doing? All right, she's all set. Set with what?
Come on, Riley, get up. Camp time.
Lunch break.
Wait, you can't leave it like this.
Don't worry, we'll be back.
Come on, we're gonna be late. Let's go.
Riley, you aren't packed yet?
You're always on me! Can't you just lay off for like 1 second?
Overreact much?
I barely touched it. Those morons broke the console.
Riley, what's wrong?
Oh, Mom looks sad.
I'm the worst!
Oh no, honey.
I barely touched it.
That's what I said.
Let the professional handle this.
I'm too gross to go to camp or anywhere ever again!
Oh yeah, this is totally broken.
Well, we all knew this day would come.
Remember, we agreed not to make a big deal about this.
But she really does stink.
Oh, it's bad.
Remain calm. Stick to the prepared script.
You are not gross, honey. You're just changing. Remember that beautiful butterfly we saw in the park last week? Well, that butterfly began as a caterpillar, and just like that caterpillar,
Easy.
wings. But if you have questions...
Gosh, Mom, just go away! Ugh!
Well, that's a preview of the next 10 years.
All right, so 100%. And you know, in this movie, like, yes, embarrassment definitely plays a role. Boredom definitely plays a role. But anxiety becomes the lead character. So in each of these movies, there's kind of one emotion that becomes the lead character and bottles up all the remaining emotions. And in this movie, it's anxiety. Anxiety becomes the lead character. And that's not just a kid's movie. So, I mean, yes, it's a kid's movie, but it's introducing a very real struggle for today's adolescents, and really for all of us, because I said this at one point, you know, we don't just grow out of those things, we begin to just adapt, and it just looks a little bit different. But anxiety is a huge issue. I started this book this week, and I can't recommend it to you yet. I'm just going to reference a couple of charts out of it, so I wanted you to see it. But I started listening to this book, and it's one of those books that I listened to, and I'm already 2 chapters in going, I'm going to have to buy the printed copy and read it, because I got to digest what this guy's saying. But there's a couple of charts very early on he references about the mental health crisis among college students. This first one is among college students. And if you'll look from 2008 to 2018, 2019, the dramatic increase in anxiety and depression. And he deals with some other ones down a little bit further, but they didn't have near the increases as anxiety and depression had. And this chart is pre-pandemic. So you can only imagine that the statistics are probably higher after the pandemic, after we sent everybody home and, you know, had the huge scare with all of that. I mean, the statistics have got to be even higher after the pandemic. But this one was very interesting too, and this one was by age. And you look at, you know, you can go down to the bottom and see the older demographics and look up, but look at the amount of movement between 2008 and 2020 in those at 25 versus the amount of movement between those aged 35 to 40. So anxiety is increasing for everyone, but in that 18 to 25 age group, it's dramatically increasing. And again, this doesn't include preteen numbers. And he starts talking about that in the second chapter, some of the preteen numbers as well. And I bring that up at the front just to say, this is not just a kid's movie. Like this is just a cute little kid's movie. You know, anxiety is a very real issue. both normal levels of anxiety and elevated levels of anxiety and anxiety disorders. All of that is on the increase. We live in it's not only an anxious generation, it's a very anxious culture, and it's a very serious issue. And the Bible does talk about it, and I'm going to get to one of the key passages that the Bible talks about this. But I think what the movie does with this character does a great job of visualizing anxiety. And I had a counselor tell me, I want my clients, and they work with younger children, like, I want them to go watch this movie so that we got something to talk about. Like, I think they can not only feel what the emotion is, but kind of visualize the emotion. And this is anxiety. And you picked up from the trailer, she's high energy. She's got a lot of nervous energy. She's very spastic, and she has the tendency to spiral out of control. And that's exactly what anxiety feels like. It feels like everything's just kind of jittery, and you're losing it, and you can't really gain a sense of normalcy. That's exactly what anxiety feels like, and it's different than fear, and it's different than worry. Now I'm going to show you the difference between worry and anxiety in just a minute, but I think the movie can explain the difference between fear and anxiety. So anxiety, fear is a response to an immediate threat and a real threat. Anxiety is a response to a future imagined threat. And so watch anxiety trying to explain to the other emotions what her role is in Riley's life.
We all have a job to do. You make Riley happy. Sadness makes her sad. Fear protects her from the scary stuff she can see. And my job is to protect her from the scary stuff she can't see. I plan for the future. Oh, I can show you. You're gonna love this.
I was using that as a cup holder.
Okay, so my team has run all the data, and we're looking at the following likely scenarios. First, we don't take this camp seriously, and we goof off with Bree and Grace. Riley looks really uncool in front of Val. She fails to impress the coach, does not become a firehawk, and finally arrives at high school. She has no one. She eats alone, and only the teachers know her name.
Ew.
Okay, you and I are gonna be friends.
Oh, this is a sad story.
It's a ridiculous story. Look, again, love the energy, but you're being silly. None of this will actually happen.
Right, whatever you say. You're the boss.
Yeah, so anxiety plans for the future. And anxiety has an overactive imagination. Anxiety plans for the worst case scenario in all scenarios. And a lot of the scenarios never happen, but we spend countless amount of time worrying about scenarios that are never going to happen because anxiety is trying to plan for something that could possibly happen, and it's going through all the different scenarios. You say, well, what do we do about that? Because we all experience feelings like that. And actually in the movie, and I won't give the spoilers because it's still in theaters, but anxiety starts to spin out of control. I mean, the anxiety just gets out of control. So what happens when our anxiety gets out of control? Well, that's easy. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. The Bible says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the God of peace, who transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So just cut it out. That's what the Bible says. The Bible says don't be anxious. So if you're feeling anxious, stop it. Just quit being anxious. Just stop. And you laugh because why? It's not that simple. I mean, anybody who's ever wrestled with anxiety in any level, low, it's not that simple to just cut it out. When you're having those feelings and you're having those emotions and you don't know how to control them, I mean, it's not enough to just say, well, just quit and you're fine. Just pray and you're fine. No, I mean, and you can go to I could take you to what Jesus says about worry, because in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus says, therefore I tell you, do not worry. Like, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Don't worry about tomorrow. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Just worry about today. I mean, all of that kind of stuff you hear in Scripture, but you're like, how do I do that? And how do I even know if what I'm experiencing is anxiety or fear? How do I know if it's worry or anxiety? Or how do I know if it's a healthy level of anxiety? Because, fear, there's a good purpose for fear, right? If we don't have fear, we could get hurt really bad if we're not scared of some things. There's a good purpose for worry. There are some things we should worry about. And I want to just read you a quick list, and we're going to come back to this passage here. The difference between anxiety and worry. And I thought this was a good summary of the difference between those. Number one, worry is more specific and concrete, while anxiety is more generalized and vague. For example, worrying about failing a test is more specific than worrying about becoming a failure. And like we should worry about failing a test so that we study and we do good on the test. But if we fail one test, that doesn't make us a failure. And the movie picks up on those themes of Riley feeling like she's not good enough, going from I made a mistake in a ball game to being I'm not good enough or I'm not a good person. I don't know if you caught the interview yesterday, it was with Caleb Dressel in the Olympics, and I was watching that. Like every 4 years, I become a huge swimming fan. So I don't watch any swimming or keep up with any swimming until the Olympics, and it takes me about one day to know who all the stars are. And it's awesome. I love the sport. Every 4 years, I love the sport. But Caleb Dressel was supposed to replace Michael Phelps. So when Phelps retired, Dressel's the next U.S. star. And that's a tremendous amount of pressure, isn't it? I mean, he's a great swimmer. It's a tremendous amount of pressure. And he did an interview where he talked about the anxiety he felt after competing in the COVID games. What was that, Tokyo? The anxiety he felt and how it kind of spiraled out of control. How he had to take a break from swimming, for 8-9 months because his anxiety was just kind of spinning out of control because he began to focus on all his failures as a swimmer. He's one of the world's best swimmers, and he began to focus on all his failures. That's a great example. Like it's one thing to worry about something specific and concrete. Anxiety is generalized and vague. Number 2, worry is grounded in reality. Again, the Dressel example. While anxiety is marked by catastrophic thinking. I'll never win another race. I'll never be good again. I'll never do this again. It creates the worst possible case scenario. Number 3, worry happens in the mind, while anxiety happens in both the mind and the body. So you can actually feel anxiety. There's actually physical symptoms associated with anxiety. We can get anxious enough that we make ourselves physically sick. Number 4, worry can involve emotional, physiological, and cognitive components, but they aren't exaggerated. Anxiety has the same components, but they are exaggerated and can linger, disconnecting emotion from logic. So we get so emotional that we aren't logical anymore. And you've had these when you're not having the anxiety, you've talked to people like you're being completely illogical. But to them, it doesn't feel illogical because the emotions are driving the control panel, so it doesn't feel illogical. But that's what happens when we're in those anxiety storms. And then the 5th one is that worry doesn't usually impact daily functioning, but anxiety usually does. And so it's basically worry on steroids is anxiety. It's this ramped up emotional response to a feeling of uncertainty that could be, real and imagined. And the Bible does prescribe a response. I mean, the Bible does say, here's some things you can do. When you feel that anxiety ramping up, pray. When you feel it ramping up, be grateful. Like what Ebony was talking about. Like think of why, the reasons you have to be grateful. When you feel that anxiety ramping up, you're asking for peace of God. I mean, contentment is another way of putting this. You're asking for contentment and asking God to give you peace, to calm you. Now, interestingly, this is Philippians 4, 6 through 7. After the first service, somebody came up, and she's actually a therapist, and she said, you cut off the very next verse is the best verse. You cut off the best verse. And I'm like, well, what is it? And she's like, 8 and 9. And I said, well, what does it say? Because I don't have the whole thing memorized. So I was like, what does it say? And she says, it tells you what to think about. So it says, yes, pray. Don't be anxious, pray, and ask for the peace of God. But look at 8 and 9. It says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything's excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen from me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So if you're saying, if you look at that very next verse, it's saying, don't be anxious, pray, and ask God to calm your heart. And then think about what's true. Think about what's true about you and about what God says about you, and think about what's true about God. And that's a calming activity. That's a grounding activity. Like if you follow in the movie, Riley kind of pulls it back together by practicing, deep breaths and look at the sunshine and look at what she has to be grateful for and remember who she is. That it's not, I I am good enough. I am a good person. I am good enough. So she starts to, there's like this grounding technique that she uses. And they don't mention prayer, and you don't expect them to mention prayer in a Pixar movie. But I'm like, that's pretty much what prayer is. I mean, that's what we do in prayer. In prayer, one of the things we're doing is we're pausing and we're trying to recenter ourselves on our relationship with God, because anxiety gets us focused on all the other stuff going on, all the reasons we have to worry and all this, and we get focused on everything going around us, and prayer kind of gets us pausing and going, I remember who I am, I remember who I belong to, I remember that God has everything in control, that, all things work to the good, that in the end, everything's going to be okay, and if it's not the end, if it's not okay, then it's not the end, so I get kind of focused in on who God is, and I think about the things that are true, and I think about the things that are right, and the things that are lowly, and things that are admirable, and that gives me peace. Just being in the presence of God gives me peace. And sometimes it takes a while, okay? So it's not like, sometimes it's not an immediate, like I'm feeling that anxiety storm coming on, and I just start praying, and all of a sudden, everything's good. No, and sometimes it takes a while for that emotion to kind of settle down. But I think it's exactly what Paul's talking about right here in Philippians. I'll give you an example, and it's the best example I can give you is about my dog. Okay, and some of you have kept up with my dog. If you follow me on Facebook, I used to post a lot about her when she was a teenager. When she was going through puberty, I told a lot of stories about Mia because she is an anxious dog. Okay, she has high anxiety. And she's had it her entire life. But she manifested that anxiety as a puppy by chewing stuff. All the furniture on our back porch, all running shoes, muck boots, any package that FedEx left or UPS left, it's going to get chewed up. She chewed my Ecclesiastes commentary as I was studying on the back porch, and she came and took the commentary. I actually had the four-wheel drive on my truck go out. And I couldn't figure out why, and I took it to a mechanic, and the mechanic called me back. He's like, "Sir, you're not going to believe what happened, but some animal has gotten underneath your truck and chewed out all the wiring to your four-wheel drive." I said, "Yeah, I know her name. Her name's Mia." And he goes, "I thought it was a raccoon or a squirrel. I've never seen anything like this before." And so anyway, she's grown out of it a little bit, okay? So she stopped chewing as much. She'll still do it, but she stopped chewing as much. But now, and I don't have a picture of this, now she's scared of thunderstorms. Deathly afraid of thunderstorms. The bigger the storm, the more afraid she is. And, she whimpers and howls and barks, and she wants in the house. She's not an indoor dog. She's an outdoor dog, but she wants in the house. She can get in the garage. She doesn't want it in the garage. She just begs to come in the house when there's a bad thunderstorm. And there's a reason why, and there's a good reason she's scared of thunderstorms. Because when she was about 1, I ran over her in the driveway in the middle of a thunderstorm. It was raining hard, and it's thundering and lightning and all that. And we were going to eat somewhere, and I was backing the truck up, and I hit her. And it was a traumatic experience for all involved, because I was out in the yard in the rain trying to catch her, and she's running from me, and she, thankfully she didn't break anything, and everything was okay, and it took about a week for her to I wouldn't say fully recover in a week, but it took about a week for her to walk, honestly. And so she has a lot of trauma associated with thunder, because in her mind, the thunder's to blame, not me. The thunder was to blame. So she doesn't know what happened, but something happened bad during a thunderstorm. So every time there's a bad thunderstorm, she has anxiety. And you say, well, she deserves to have anxiety in a bad thunder. That's exactly that should be her response. She should be scared of thunderstorms. Thunderstorms are dangerous, so she should be scared of those. Here's the problem, though, that I've noticed in the last month or so, or last year or so, I should say. Her fear of thunderstorms is growing in disproportion to the actual threat of the thunderstorm. In other words, she's starting to have reactions to things that are associated with thunderstorms, but not really thunderstorms. So like when there's a bad thunderstorm, I'm scared. I get it. She wants to beg and come inside, and I let her in the utility room and come in here and shut the door, and she calms down. I understand that. but she started to be scared of just kind of bad storms. Not really bad storms, but just, I can see why she's a little scared of this, but it's just kind of bad. And then it kind of morphed to where just a little bit of thunder. Not a bad storm at all, just one or two peals of thunder, and suddenly she's having an anxiety attack. And then it kind of morphed into rain, but no thunder. So she's scared of the rain, no longer scared of the thunder, she's now scared of the rain. And then it kind of morphed into just a light drizzle. Literally nothing. You got to look out when she begs on the window, you look out like, seriously, is it raining? And you look at the radar and go, well, yeah, there's a little bit of rain. And she's scared. Then, and I'm not kidding, then it morphed into cloudy days. Just if it's overcast, it looks like it might rain, then she's scared, right? That's exactly how anxiety works. It takes a legitimate traumatic experience associated with something that, yep, we should be scared of that, but then it starts planning for the future. And that's what she's doing. She's planning for the future. Clouds mean it might rain. Rain means it might thunder. Thunder is dangerous. So, and this could be a whole therapy session on my dog. So she's planning for the future, and that's what we do with anxiety. We can have a legitimate, fear of something, some type of traumatic experience that happened to us, and it's a legitimate thing, but it starts spiraling out of control. We can have, one bad experience on an airplane and then go, I'll never fly an airplane ever again, because every time I get on an airplane, I start to have this, I start to feel that because this anxiety is in there, because it's this triggering kind of emotional response to it. And so I've been trying to figure out how to help her. And, I know that by preaching this, people are going to come up to me and go, you got to do this, because I know anxious dogs are a thing. So, but I've been trying to figure out, how do I'm fine with her being scared of thunderstorms, but how do I get her to quit being scared of rain and quit being scared of clouds? What do I do? And we had all that rain last week or two, it was thundered every day, it rained every day. And I thought, well, the first thing I'm going to try is, when we were raising kids, sometimes you just got to let them cry it out, so they just got to learn to deal with it. And so I'm just going to let her learn to deal with it. If it's a bad storm, I'll let her in the house, but if it's just a mild storm, or it's just raining, no, she just needs to sit on the back porch. So there was a little bit of storm popped up, and I was letting her kind of, she's whimpering, knocking on the door and all that stuff. I'm just going to let her deal with it. And I remember that night, Jackson was over at the house that night, and he goes, what's the matter with Mia? And I said, oh, she's scared of rain. And he goes, well, scared of what? And I said, well, she's scared of storms, and so I'm trying to, just let her tough it out. And he goes, so she's scared of the storms, and you're trying to help her overcome it by leaving her in the storm? And I said, yeah, something like that. It may not be the best idea, but something like that. And so I tried something else the next morning. So the next morning, it was storming again, and she jumped up on the front porch, and like she's scratching, wanting to get in and all that kind of stuff. And it was like 6 a.m, and I was drinking my coffee in peace on my couch. And I thought, I'm not going to let her in the house. But I just got up and took my coffee and went outside. And I just sat on the back porch with her. And it took her a good minute of when she gets anxious, she runs around in circles. Literally, just like the movie, just runs around in circles. And she did that, about knocked my coffee over and drove me crazy. I'm like, calm down, it's rain. It took her about a good minute. She finally sat up on the piece of furniture there with me, and eventually kind of slowly came down and calmed down. And I don't want to be in a situation drinking coffee with my dog every morning, but whenever it's storming, what I've tried to do is just go out there. And the other day this happened, and it's like a preacher's dream. Like, you couldn't plan this event right here. But I went out, and she calmed down, and it was raining, and she's scared of rain. Okay, it's raining, and just me sitting outside with her, and I'm drinking my coffee, and she goes down at my feet and lays down and goes to sleep. During the storm, she goes to sleep. And I get up and tiptoe off the porch and go back into the house and shut the door, and she doesn't have any clue. She's that calm. Now, that's why I say it's a preacher's dream. You can make the application, right? I'm not her creator, but I'm her provider. And when she's in the presence of her provider, she feels peace. Whether she thinks I have something to do, like I'm bigger than the storm, or what I actually think it is, it's the same with us. When she's in the presence of somebody that's not bothered by the storm, I'm calm, so why are you ramped up? She has peace when she's in the presence of her provider. And I think that's real similar to what Paul is getting at in Philippians. He's saying when you're feeling that anxiety ramp up, you're feeling it get out of control, and you're feeling it spin out of control, sit with your provider. Sit with your God and think about the things that he says are true about you, and ask for him to guard you with that peace that passes all understanding. Now, I'll say this, and we got to wrap up because I'm going long. That's pretty much how most of us can deal with normal levels of anxiety. But sometimes the anxiety is not at normal levels. Sometimes it's elevated. So sometimes we can everybody experiences anxiety. So it's a common human experience. But if we're experiencing anxiety to a level that's making us fearful that we're going to hurt ourselves, or we're going to hurt others, or we're going to damage some relationships, then we need to see a professional in those cases. We need to make a phone call and make an appointment with a counselor. So it's exactly what we talked about last week, pray and take action. Yeah, we should pray, but it may not be that we just are going to stop with prayer. It may be that I'm going to pray and I'm going to go see somebody about this, because they're going to give me techniques to kind of help me stay grounded in this. And then that's you could get into anxiety disorders as well, and there's a certain percentage of the population that have truly anxiety disorders, and you need a professional to kind of navigate those things and walk through that. So you can always text me, message me, email us. We've got a ton of professionals in this church that are connected to this church, and I always go to them I'll refer them, but some people are like, I don't want to meet anybody that goes to church with me, and it's like, well, let me ask them who you could see in Franklin, Nashville, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to mention that at the end of the message. Let me just a couple of things we need to talk about real quick, and then we'll wrap up. Move on past my dog. Here we go. Ebony mentioned small group signups. Those are live today. I saw Tim slip up and get out of the room, and I think it's because he was going to the Connect desk. So he'll be at the Connect desk if you've got questions about small groups, joining a group, starting a group, any of that kind of stuff. We have a Step 1 coming up at the end of this month. You sign up through the Church Center app for that Step 1. And I mentioned the 5th and 6th grade night already. There's the address. I will throw that up real quick. 3015 Campbellsville Pike. So if you're a parent take a picture of that real quick. I'll leave it up for just a second. But 3015 Campbellsville Pike, and that's this afternoon, 3 to 5. And last thing is I'll just put our offering on the screen. Maybe I won't. Chris, you're going to have to help me out. There we go. So, last week we had the thing for the well outreach, and the idea was, the first 20,000, maybe we get 25,000, we got 20 for the well and 5 for ourselves, whatever. You guys, knocked it out of the park once again. So we got 20,000 for the well, and the check's already been cut and mailed off to them. But then we also met our budget of 20,000. So we were able to do both. Yeah, you can applaud that. And that was a very good end of the summer for us to be able to do that, because things fall off in the summer as far as giving. So we were able to take care of our budget and take care of the well. And I was telling the first service, that's a sermon. When you take care of others, that's a whole sermon in and of itself. But I appreciate that. That's the information about our regular offering. Next Sunday, I cut the movie series short because we're going to do something called Hope Sunday. And it's a normal Sunday, but instead of me preaching, you're going to hear from Bobby and Ricky, kind of some updates on what's going on at the house and what's going on with the ministry. And then Parker was in here earlier. I saw him. Parker and Joseph are going to share some testimonies with you guys, and it's about how to get involved at the center, but it's also just so you know kind of what's going on, and I'm looking forward